unconstructed, unsuccessful, unpopular, destroyed, stolen, lost, forgotten, concealed, and unallowed inventions, Part 4. This is the other version of the Hawker Sidney HS-141 plane I was talking about previously in Part 1. This is the other design of the plane. Again, the plane has shoulders and the wings are attached to the shoulders. These little compartments here allow for the plane to have even more control over its velocity and buoyancy in the air. A revolutionary design that was never applied. This design would have changed stability. Look at this design. This plastic model is all that's left of this plane. It was never built. I think this design is even better than the previous one. This is another unsuccessful invention. The flying platform or the floating platform. A one-person hovercraft device. It didn't fly too high and the person was vulnerable to enemy fire, so this adventure never took off. Another unsuccessful invention, the hovercraft tank. This was designed in 1937 by the Soviet Union. The idea was to build a tank that can hover over water. And this one was fast. It could travel dozens of miles, maybe even 100 miles, if I remember correctly. But this tank was never built, it was never used, and it was never deployed. Once again, I believed it could have changed things, it could have changed history if it was only used. I'm not sure if this model even survived, but this photo is all that's left of this invention. Another confiscated invention, another unallowed invention, the hydrogen fuel cell. A system that allows a vehicle to run entirely on water. This system was denied from the world and denied from people. The world would have been a completely different place if this system was used. This is another concept, another failed concept from World War II. This was the British design. The idea was to, instead of building an entire aircraft carrier, you take a giant iceberg and you slice it, you form it, and you just put the upper part of the aircraft carrier on top of this giant ice. This would save a lot of resources. Interestingly, this ice aircraft carrier lasted 2 or 4 months before actually melting. Nothing came of this idea. This is another experimental aircraft that was not built, designed by Luigi Colani, who died not too long ago. This was his experimental future passenger aircraft. It had futuristic rocket engines, and all of these windows were for passengers. This plastic model is all that's left. By the looks of all these windows, this aircraft was gigantic and would have held thousands of passengers, over thousands of passengers. But it was never built. It has a shark-like design. This is another ancient invention, the Antikythera mechanism, nicknamed Antikythera because it was found near the Greek island of Antikythera. This is an astronomical computer, an astronomical calculator. This is the front and this is the back. This device could have calculated the movements of the sun and moon. Only one of these were found. This device is an indicator that history is not what has been told, and that inventions like these were possible in the ancient past. This is another unpopular, failed experimental aircraft. This is a mini helicopter plane. The DEBCN. The Maro 03. Only one of these were built. The helicopter propeller was on the tail of the aircraft. Only one of these were built, I believe. Nothing came of this. It never took off. It never became popular. This is another failed unsuccessful invention from World War II, the German Mauser tank. This is one of the biggest tanks ever designed, ever built. This tank was 200 tons. Impenetrable armor. This tank would have murdered every single tank on the battlefield, but it was far too heavy and impractical. Only one or two of these were ever built. This tank was so heavy that it actually required another tank just like it, just to pull it. Only one of these is left, and it's in a museum. This is another one-wheeled invention. Cruiser of a monowheel. Only one of these were built, but it was just not feasible enough. It wasn't popular enough, and it never took off. This invention is destroyed and it doesn't exist anymore. Another failed Civil War invention. The Novgorod monitor ship. This is a circular battleship, a circular ironclad ship. I'm not sure if this was ever built. This one has 6 propellers. It was never built, and this plastic model is all that's left. Its circular design meant that the enemy could be seen clearly from all directions. This plastic model is all that's left of this idea. End of part 4.